Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another edition of Midweek Maiden. This is where we get together on Wednesdays and talk Iron Maiden. I thought it would be fun. This is going to be a continuing thing here where I'm going to go through the Iron Maiden albums and give you my favorite song on the album and my least favorite song on the record. So we're going to do the first 5 albums. I'm just going to break this into sections. So here we go with the first 5 albums. My favorite and least favorite. Now, it should be said that I love all these records. So even my least favorite, they're not songs that I hate. They're just my least favorite out of all these songs on these albums because all these first 5 records have a lot of great songs on it. So even the worst song on this record is better than a lot of other bands' best songs. So, all right, the first Iron Maiden album. My favorite song is Phantom of the Opera. I have told this story that the very first Iron Maiden song I ever heard was Phantom of the Opera. We had just gotten MTV, came down in the middle of the night, turned it on, and they were playing Iron Maiden Live at the Rainbow video. And the song Phantom of the Opera is what I heard, and it just blew my mind as a young bass player seeing Steve playing all over the neck like that. I always thought it was a great song. I think it's the best song on this record. It's one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. As a young bass player, I remember getting a tablature book that had a bunch of different bands and songs, and Phantom of the Opera was in there, and that was sort of like this benchmark. Like, if I could just play Phantom of the Opera, I'll be a good bass player. And I remember when I finally got it together, I was telling some people at school, like, I can play Phantom of the Opera on bass. And like word spread around, and I remember some kids coming up to me like, hey, are you the kid that can play Phantom of the Opera on bass? You know, it was a real prestigious thing back when it was that. And then the next step for me was YYZ by Rush. So I always loved the song, loved the lyrics, loved Deanna's delivery. I also loved the harmonies, the vocal harmonies in the song. Something that I kind of wish Maiden had continued with. The guitar harmonies are great. All the changes in the sections between the songs is just fantastic. When Iron Maiden says now that they're progressive, to me, I say, man, they're not really progressive to me now. They're just have a lot of long songs. This stuff to me, like Phantom of the Opera, is more progressive than anything they're doing now because it's had a lot of tempo changes, key changes, interesting little melodies and stuff going on. All right, my least favorite song from this record is Running Free. And for a lot of these albums, some of my least favorite songs are songs that I'm tired of hearing, that I'm burnt out on. When I was younger, I really liked Running Free. I guess I could relate to it because it's pretty straightforward. It has that sort of tribal drum feel through it. I used to play it in like my first band. It's a pretty easy song to play, but I just tired of it quickly. And it's a song that when it comes up on when I'm listening to this record, I sometimes just skip it. It's just a little too straightforward. It's I don't know. It's got a cool feel to it, but it's kind of repetitious and almost AC/DC-like in its simplicity. And it's an okay song, but I'm just bored of it. I'm tired of it. I really don't like when they play it live, like on Live After Death, where they drag it out and everything. To me, it just doesn't work for me. Okay, from the second album, Killers, my favorite song is Murders in the Rue Morgue. I really like the intro, the way it's sort of atmospheric, and then it kicks in and it gets really aggressive. And I like the vocals and the lyrics in it, kind of telling a story. It's another song that's got a lot of changes in it, but it's just this really fast, almost speed metal, early speed metal, if you will. I love the mix on Killers, and I think it just really works. My favorite song from Killers. My least favorite song from Killers is Drifter. I like the intro to Drifter. I don't like the verses in it. Like the chords, it just feels too like kind of rock and roll, stock rock and roll. I really don't like the lyrics. The lyrics are just sort of throwaway and goofy. And after stuff like Murders in the Rue Morgue, which are really engaging lyrics, Drifter just seems kind of thrown away, and it's the last song on the album, and so I don't know, it's a shame. It sort of feels like the album doesn't end on a strong note, and it's one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums. All right, Number of the Beast, my favorite song. This is a tough one because there's so many great songs on here. I went with Hallowed Be Thy Name. It's an epic. It's so well written. It's a classic. I may be a tad bit tired of hearing it, but when they play it live, you still get into it. Bruce's vocal delivery is just fantastic. I love the guitar harmonies and the changes in the song. The tolling bell at the beginning. I've said this before. I'm always a sucker for tolling bells and atmospheric things like that. And I just love the atmospheric vibe of certain parts of the song and just the way the song ends. It's very dramatic. It's a great, great album closer, as opposed to where Drifter seems like a song that was a little half-baked. They couldn't quite get it quite together, so they stuck it at the end of the record. This was intentionally put there because it's an epic. It's a great, great album closer. My least favorite from Number of the Beast, maybe not a total surprise, Gangland, although some other people would probably say Invaders. I really like Invaders. When we did a Deep Cuts episode, that was one of my deep cuts. But for me, it's Gangland, and I do really like that song. It has a different feel to it than some of the other songs on the record, but it just doesn't rise quite to the level of where some of these other songs are, like Children of the Damned and Number of the Beast, and I'm kind of tired of Run to the Hills, but it's an epic, sort of classic Maiden song. Another song that if it comes on a PA system when you're at a show, you can't help but sing along. And Gangland, for me, it's cool, and I do like the riffs and the fast feel of it, but it's just a little notch below the other songs on here. And other people would say Invaders, but I love the feel of Invaders. The verse, the intro to that song, I think is a great album opener. I love the chorus. That's usually the sticking point for people. It's just so weird with Bruce's voice jumping all over the place. Peace of Mind. Boy, every song on this record is great to me, so this is really hard to pick. But I went with To Tame a Land. It is epic. I almost went with Flight of Icarus because I do really, really love Flight of Icarus, and it was like right at that age when that was the video and everything. I just love that song. But for me, To Tame a Land is just so epic. The changes in it, the tempo changes, the intro, the moody, atmospheric intro. I just think it's a fantastic song. This one showed up on our Deep Cuts episode. It's a song that, man, if they ever were to play this live, I think a lot of Iron Maiden fans, their heads would just explode. It's just a very well written, great, great song. I love it. I love the melody line and the way Bruce is spitting out all these quick lyrics and everything. Just fantastic. My least favorite song from here, and again, this is one of my favorite Maiden records, but if I had to pick a least favorite, it would probably be Die With Your Boots On. I don't really like the chorus in it, and I don't like... And if you're gonna die, well, you're gonna die. If you're gonna die, I don't know. It's just a little straight ahead for me, and it's kind of fun. Yeah, but it just, if there's a song that I'm gonna skip on this record, it's gonna be Die With Your Boots On. It's a little stock. I don't like. It's almost silly. There's like a silly feel to it that I just don't care for. And as a kid, I just wasn't into that vibe. I was more into the more epic, like Where Eagles Dare. That could have made my list. There were a couple. Where Eagles Dare, Flight of Icarus, and To Tame a Land were the ones that first came to mind for me when I was thinking of my favorite here. And I really could have had any of those three, but I went with To Tame a Land because it's just so epic and everything. Okay, Powerslave, number one favorite song on here, another album that I love, but Rime of the Ancient Mariner. If you can tell, I love the epics. This is maybe Steve Harris at his finest, maybe the best Iron Maiden epic, maybe. The lyrics are just fantastic. Bruce's vocal delivery, the production on this album is great. All the changes, that middle section where everything gets quiet and the noise, the sea noises and the creaking ship and the spoken word part, and the way it comes out of that with that little bass solo. The guitar solos in this are great. This is where I wish Maiden would take a page from. This is kind of a long song compared to what they were doing at this time. But it doesn't feel like a long song because the changes, they come at just the right time. Whereas modern Maiden, they tend to drag things out too long. The intros are too long. The guitar solos go on too long. This is like really, everything is right in its place. It really brings you along. It never feels like any riff or solo or section overstays its welcome. You want to sing along with it. I know all the lyrics to this. I could sing this in my sleep. Great, great song. Okay, my least favorite, boy, this was tough. I went back and forth with, I almost did 2 Minutes to Midnight because I'm really tired of that song. And that's one of their early classics. Like Flight of Icarus, you would say, you know, I've heard that one a million times, but I still really like Flight of Icarus. 2 Minutes to Midnight, I'm kind of tired of that stock riff at the beginning. It's, I don't know, it's a little too rock and roll, too straight ahead for me. But I went with Lost for Words. And I feel bad about it because it's a cool instrumental. But where it sits on the record as the third song, I mean, call it, you know, daring and brave to put an instrumental at song number 3, or call it, you know, bad judgment, if you will. I mean, it's cool, but it goes on a little bit too much. And I do love my Iron Maiden instrumentals, but things like Genghis Khan and stuff like that, they tended to be a little shorter, a little more quicker to the point. Lost for Words just drags a little bit. And maybe if it was deeper in the album, it would work a little bit better. But as the third song in the record, it's a strange choice to put an instrumental as the third song, because that's usually where you think your big hits, your strongest number is going to be, like song number 3 or song number 4. So I like it. I like the different changes and the bass playing in it and the guitar stuff, but it just drags on a little bit too much, and sometimes I kind of find myself reaching for the forward button when I'm listening to it. So okay, there you go. There's the first five Iron Maiden records, my favorite and least favorite song from each of them. You let me know what are some of your favorites and least favorites from this record, and we will continue through their catalog as Midweek Maiden moves on. And until we see you again, and make sure you stay heavy, stay metal, and up the irons.